The wrapping paper was gold, thick, elegant, tied with a velvet ribbon. Inside was a sealed envelope, neatly folded. 3 months of fully covered rent. I handed it to my sister with a quiet smile. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't meant to be. Just a small act of relief for her. Someone who'd been struggling, according to every whispered conversation my mother had dropped in my lap over the last few weeks. Rachel opened the envelope, slowly, read the card, looked at the check, then looked up at me, loud enough for the whole family to hear. Tries to compensate for the fact that she's not needed by this family. The room went still. Then someone, I think my cousin, let out a laugh. And then the rest joined in. The kind of laughter that doesn't just sting, it slices. I felt it hit like a slap. But I didn't flinch. I reached forward, plucked the envelope right back from Rachel's hands, tucked it into my coat pocket and said, "Useful to know. No yelling. No drama. Just truth." 10 minutes later, I was walking toward the door when I heard someone say, "Wait, Emily, seriously, don't be like that." Then another voice, my mother's. "Emily, please, just come back. Let's talk." By the time I shut the front door behind me, the whole house was shouting, "Please listen to US." But I didn't, because for once I was listening to myself. My name is Emily Carter, and from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me, because the night they laughed at my kindness was the same night they stopped laughing altogether. I've always been the dependable one, not the loudest, not the favorite, just the one everyone could count on. When Rachel totaled her car in college, I co-signed the loan for the new one. When Dad's small business hit a rough patch, I quietly wired money from my savings. When Mom needed help planning Grandma's funeral, I took unpaid leave to arrange everything. No one asked if I could afford it. No one checked to see how I was doing. They just assumed I'd handle it, because that's what I'd always done. The invisible daughter, the steady hand. I didn't give to be noticed, at least that's what I told myself. I gave because it felt like love. Like maybe, just maybe, if I kept showing up, they'd finally see me as more than the fallback plan. Rachel, on the other hand, was the sparkle. She always had a flair for making scenes. Failed classes? It was the professor's fault. Broken friendships? They were jealous. Every family event revolved around her. Her job drama, her on and off boyfriend, her endless crises. Mom called it personality. I called it convenient, because no matter how much mess Rachel created, someone else always cleaned it up. Usually me. And still, I thought this year might be different. She'd been late on rent 3 times, Mom said. Behind on utilities. She was trying, but work had been slow. So I did what I always did, quietly made things easier. 3 months of covered rent. No fanfare, just a gesture of support. And she took it, held it in front of everyone, and mocked me. She's not needed. Like kindness was embarrassing. Like being dependable was pitiful. Like the worst thing a woman could be was useful. I watched them all laugh. My mother, my cousins, even my aunt, the one who cried when I helped pay off her medical bills 5 years ago. In that moment, I wasn't humiliated. I was done. Because when someone shows you what your presence means to them, believe them. And when they laugh at the version of you that's always carried their weight, you don't argue. You put it down. For good. After I walked out of that house, I didn't cry. Not in the car. Not when I got home. Not even the next morning when I opened my email to a long message from my mother titled, "Let's not overreact." I read every word. Rachel was just being playful. You know how sarcastic she is. We all appreciate you, even if we don't always say it. Every line was a masterclass in deflection. Not once did she acknowledge what happened. Not once did she ask how I felt. It was damage control. Rehearsed. Hollow. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my bank app, and I started pulling plugs. First, the automatic payment for Rachel's car insurance. She hadn't even known I was covering it. Mom had quietly asked me to help her get on her feet months ago. Canceled. Next, the savings account I set up for Dad's side business, the one where I was the only one contributing. Closed. Then, the shared family Netflix and Spotify plans I was managing. Small things, but symbolic. Gone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't out for revenge. I just realized I was done volunteering for a family that didn't even see me as a person, just a resource. Over the next few days, the silence got louder. Rachel didn't reach out. Not once. No apology, no explanation, no accountability. That didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how free I felt. The absence of obligation. The way my calendar felt suddenly lighter, my evenings longer. I cooked for myself, took walks, slept better. I kept waiting for the guilt to creep in, the pull to make things right. But it didn't come. Instead, I found myself breathing, really breathing, for the first time in years. Then, 5 days after Christmas, the text started. Emily, have you been paying Rachel's insurance? Hey, why isn't the card working for the business account? Did you cancel Netflix? I didn't answer any of them. I wasn't being petty. I was being clear. Because people like that, the ones who never say thank you, who joke about your generosity like it's pathetic, they don't understand boundaries unless you draw them in permanent ink. I had drawn mine. Thick, sharp, uncrossable. And for the first time, they were starting to realize I hadn't just taken back a gift. I had taken back me. You know, what happens when you stop feeding a system that runs on your silence? It starts to starve. At first, they don't notice. It's a missed payment here, a forgotten login there. Small things, inconveniences, but then the gaps widen. And when you've been the glue, the quiet engine behind the scenes, your absence starts to echo. I didn't post a dramatic announcement. No cryptic Instagram quote about boundaries or healing. No long emails saying, I'm done. Because I wasn't giving them anything else to hold on to, not even closure. I just stopped. I pulled out of the family's group vacation planning thread, removed my card from the travel booking site, unsubscribed from the newsletter Rachel was running, the one I'd built for her, branded for her, paid monthly fees to keep live. She emailed me twice. Hey, the payment didn't go through. Can you just update your card? You've always handled that. I didn't reply. And when she tried again, this time from a different address, I blocked her. I wasn't being cruel. I was being consistent. Consistency was something I'd always given freely, even when they didn't deserve it. I showed up. I remembered birthdays. I sent flowers when they were sad, food when they were sick, and money when they were in a tough spot. It had never been reciprocated. Not once. The Christmas before this one, I paid for the entire dinner, catered. Rachel had shown up 3 hours late, snapped a selfie in front of the tree I decorated, and left before dessert. No one thanked me. No one even noticed when I stayed behind afterward to clean alone. This time they noticed everything. I heard from my cousin Mia that the group business account was locked. I had removed myself as co-owner. Apparently, the legal paperwork I'd filed months earlier had just taken effect. I was no longer financially tied to any of them. Mom tried calling, twice in one day. I didn't pick up. Then she sent a message. Emily, I don't understand what you're doing. We're family. Can't we move on from one awkward moment? One awkward moment? That wasn't awkward. That was betrayal with a bow on top. They humiliated me when I offered help, not because they misunderstood me, but because my usefulness threatened their egos. They were comfortable with me giving, as long as I stayed small while doing it. Now, I was stepping out of the background, and they hated that more than they ever appreciated the help. So I let the silence grow. I let them squirm. I let the weight they used to toss on me fall squarely back into their own hands. And I didn't say a single word, because some messages don't need to be sent. They're felt. The funny thing about people who take you for granted? They don't realize what you do until it stops being done. 10 minutes after I left that Christmas gathering, I imagine it still smelled like ham and cinnamon, still looked festive, still sparkled under the tree I helped decorate. But the mood? It shifted. My cousin Mia called me the next day to check in. She's the only one who ever saw through Rachel's nonsense, quietly, never out loud. She said, Emily, what happened after you left? I've never seen them panic like that. Apparently, someone finally opened the family Venmo account to confirm the vacation deposit, only to find the balance at zero, because I'd pulled my share and locked them out. Then someone realized Rachel's rent hadn't been paid and wasn't going to be. Then the Netflix logged out. Then the Spotify. Then the shared grocery delivery plan Mom had been using on my dime for the past year stopped working mid-order. At first, they thought it was a tech glitch. Then reality crept in like a cold draft. They had laughed. They had mocked. And then they watched the foundation they never noticed crack, piece by piece, with no one to stop the fall. They weren't sad I left. They were terrified that I meant it, that I wasn't going to come back like I always did, that I wasn't going to accept the fake apologies, the half-hugs, the excuses like, you know how Rachel is. This wasn't Emily having a moment. This was Emily vanishing and taking the structure with her. By New Year's Eve, the family group chat was a war zone. I didn't read the messages directly, but Mia sent me a few screenshots. Rachel was playing victim. I said one thing and she overreacted. It's not like I burned her house down. Mom defended her as always. It was a joke. We didn't mean it. She's being dramatic. Dad said nothing. Of course he didn't. That was always his role, the passive background figure. Loud during football games. Silent when things actually mattered. Then the tone changed. Emily, please. We're a family. We need to talk. And the word they mocked me for, needed, suddenly turned on them. Because what they were really saying was, we don't know how to function without you. We don't know how to clean up the mess now that you've stopped holding the mop. We don't know how to be a family unless you're fixing it for us. And I didn't respond. Not once. Instead, I bought a new planner. One with no birthdays marked. No family dinners circled. No reminders to send flowers or transfer money or set up Zoom calls for game night. Just blank days, waiting to be filled with people who saw me as more than a convenience, wrapped in polite silence. People who wouldn't laugh when I gave, who wouldn't use gratitude as a weapon, who didn't see boundaries as betrayal. Let them shout. Let them scramble. Let them realize the gift they threw away. Because they made one thing crystal clear. I wasn't needed, and that was the most liberating thing I'd ever learned. The first voicemail came 2 weeks after Christmas. It was my mother. Her voice was careful, the kind she used when she was afraid she might not be in control anymore. Emily, I just want to talk. We miss you. Your sister. Well, she regrets what she said. You know how she is. Please call me back. I didn't. Not because I was being cruel, but because I didn't believe her. Regret in our family was just code for say something nice so she'll come back and fix this. A few days later, Rachel posted an Instagram story, just a picture of her Christmas tree still up in mid-January with a caption. Not all presents are what they seem. Some people are just too sensitive. Subtle in her usual way, a jab in glitter. She wasn't sorry. She was embarrassed. Because her support system, the one she never acknowledged, had pulled the plug. I muted her account, blocked my mom's number. I told myself it was temporary. But the longer the silence stretched, the more I realized how peaceful life could be when I wasn't constantly cleaning up behind people who never said thank you. Instead of phone calls about someone's overdue rent or small emergencies, my days were full of quiet, calm. I went to work, came home, cooked for myself, started reading again, signed up for a weekend ceramics class just because I liked the idea of making something with my hands. I wasn't waking up dreading messages. I wasn't planning my calendar around other people's drama. I wasn't budgeting to fix someone else's crisis. It was the kind of freedom you don't even know you're missing until you taste it. Mia, my cousin, the only one who didn't jump on the bandwagon, invited me to brunch one Sunday. I almost didn't go, but I'm glad I did. She didn't pressure me, didn't say you should talk to them. She just asked how I was. And when I said, honestly, peaceful, she smiled and said, yeah, I can tell. I think that was the moment I knew I wasn't going back. Not in a dramatic, slam the door kind of way. Just quietly, like someone stepping into a room where they finally belong and realizing they never needed permission to be there. Around that time, I got a promotion at work. A big one. I was offered a lead role on a project I'd been hoping for all year. The funny part? Rachel found out before I told anyone. She emailed me. Just 2 lines. Congrats. Guess you're doing fine without us. That last word, us, stuck out. Because she meant without her. Without Mom. Without the whole web of people who had kept me small while pretending it was love. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because Rachel was finally learning what it felt like to not be needed. And I was learning something, too. Love that comes with strings isn't love. It's control. Support that only shows up when you're useful isn't support. It's dependence in disguise. I had spent most of my adult life trying to prove I belonged at a table that had no seat for me. Now, I was building my own table, and it wasn't made of guilt. It was made of peace. That Christmas, I didn't wait for an invitation. I didn't check the group chat. Didn't browse holiday flights. Didn't wonder what theme my mother had chosen for the decorations or whether Rachel would post another curated carousel of perfectly lit chaos. I just planned something for myself. I hosted Christmas Eve in my apartment. Not the biggest space, but it held warmth like a second skin. I hung string lights across my kitchen window, baked cinnamon rolls from scratch, and sent out invites to the people who had actually shown up for me that year. For guests came. Mia, of course, with a bottle of wine and a laugh that filled the entire room. Jules, a co-worker turned friend who once brought me soup when I was sick. Nina and Leah, a couple I'd met at my ceramics class, who'd never once made me feel like a third wheel, just a welcome human. There were no cameras, no passive-aggressive jabs over the mashed potatoes, no competition for who gave the best gift. Just joy, chosen joy, the kind you can feel humming beneath a quiet dinner table. At one point, Jules raised her glass. To Emily, she said, for showing us what peace really looks like. I didn't know how to respond, because for so long I had been the one in the background, organizing, fixing, giving, not the one being toasted. I didn't want to cry, but I did, just a little, not from sadness, from arrival. I had landed somewhere real. That night, after everyone left and the dishes were done, I sat by the window with a blanket and a mug of peppermint tea. Outside, the city moved like it always did. Lights blinking, cars passing, laughter rising up from a nearby bar. I didn't miss my family, not even a little. And that was a truth I never thought I'd be able to say without guilt. I used to think peace came after forgiveness, that I had to go back, explain myself, smooth things over, convince them to see my worth. But peace had nothing to do with them. It came the moment I stopped waiting for them to change. I checked my phone once before bed. One missed call, my mother. No voicemail, just the timestamp. I turned off my phone. No part of me wanted to hear her voice. Not anymore, because silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's love for yourself. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up to sunlight through my blinds and no expectations pulling me out of bed. I made breakfast, read a book, wrote in my journal, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone, because the greatest gift I gave myself that holiday was space. And in that space, I found everything I'd ever wanted. Not perfection, not applause, just peace. It's strange how one sentence can stay with you. She's not needed by this family. Rachel said it like a joke, like it was funny how I kept trying to matter. And maybe it was to them. Maybe my kindness, my effort, my loyalty was just background noise in a house that only heard what it wanted. But that sentence, it never left me. At first it stung. Then it stuck. And eventually it started to sound like freedom. Not needed. For years, I mistook being needed for being loved. I thought that if I was useful, if I handled the details, absorbed the blame, smoothed the cracks, then maybe I was valuable. It's a lie we don't talk about enough. That being depended on is the same as being appreciated. It's not. Being needed meant I could never rest. Being needed meant I couldn't say no without being called difficult. Being needed meant the second I pulled back, the whole system trembled, and they blamed me for the collapse. So when I walked out of that house on Christmas Day, I didn't just take back an envelope. I took back my identity. I let go of the role they assigned me, the helper, the fixer, the one who never needed anything, but was always expected to give everything. And I stepped into something much more powerful, myself. Now, I wake up in a home where no one expects me to save them. I walk through rooms that don't echo with guilt. I laugh, often and loudly, with people who would never reduce me to a punchline. I give still, but from a full place, not a bleeding one. And when I choose to give now, it's a gift, not a transaction in a game I never agreed to play. I don't know what my family says about me these days. Maybe that I've changed. Maybe that I'm cold. Maybe that I overreacted. But I'm not cold. I'm clear. And clarity is the thing they never expected me to find because they relied on my confusion to keep me in line. They used to throw family at me like a chain. But family, when it's built on shame and control, isn't sacred. It's a trap. I stopped calling it family the day they laughed when I tried to help. And I haven't called since. I'm not bitter. Truly. In fact, I wish them well. I hope they figure out how to keep their lives afloat without someone bailing them out behind the scenes. I hope Rachel figures out how to live without performing superiority. I hope my mother finds out what it feels like to earn forgiveness, not demand it. But none of that is my responsibility anymore. Because they were right. I'm not needed. And I don't want to be. Because I finally learned. Being needed is the price you pay when people don't know how to love you unconditionally. And being free? That's what happens when you stop buying your seat at a table that was always too small. The last thing I did that year was frame something I wrote in my journal, just 4 lines. It hangs above my desk now. They laughed when I gave. I smiled when I left. I said nothing else. And they heard everything